20 years ago, Samir. I have no idea what happened 2 years ago, let alone 20.
Whatever you do, don't think about things like souvlaki and, pappardelle and tagliatelle, because that will make you feel even worse.
But it turns out it's not that hard, really, is it? You just jump in and keep breathing and do a bit of deco.
Sydney Project.
Sydney Project.
Sydney Project.
Sydney Project.
Sydney Project? So what kind of a stupid name is Sydney Project? Where did that come from?
No, mate. It's simple, Samir. You wanted it. Well, I first heard about it, Samir, because you said you wanted to dive all these wrecks and we needed some way of doing it. And you suggested that we should all form a group and go out and get access and dive. And I thought, what a brilliant idea.
So the name Sydney Project didn't really come from anywhere. It sort of got stuck when we decided to do a project finding the remaining hulk of the first HMAS Sydney. So we called it Sydney Project. And when there's been publicity for us going out doing other projects, suddenly we just became known as the Sydney Project Divers. So we just stuck with it.
I think my recollections were when, sure, it was around when we were doing the inspiration course together. And I'm sure you floated around the idea then, which, I don't know, had to be 2001 possibly. But yeah, I don't think it kicked off till maybe the next year, and then we were official the year after. But yeah, I think it was you had this idea of creating a group of people who could go and do some real deep stuff, which, probably in saying that right this very second, it's not real deep anymore, but it was at the time. So, yeah, and that's why I got involved as well, because I love deep diving. Yeah.
When the Sydney Project was conceived, I was in Brisbane and was kind of on the front of that early rebreather diving wave, and I was well aware of what you guys were doing. You were just starting it all off, and I was moving from Brisbane to Sydney, and it was a very natural thing to do, to join up with you, because you were active and I had a bunch of great guys. And so I was very lucky actually to come in at exactly the time that you were getting things going. And that was a terrific opportunity for me, and I'm very grateful for it.
Well, Sydney Project was around and I was aware of them before I was beginning technical, or probably about the time I was starting technical diving, particularly the exploits of Dave Apps with what he was doing. But then you guys started getting all together with those wrecks down the coast. And I really thought, geez, I'll never be doing that stuff. These guys are awesome. But it turns out it's not that hard, really, is it? You just jump in and keep breathing and do a bit of deco. So it was a great privilege later on to actually get to dive with some of you guys and see some of the stuff you were doing.
I found out about the project and the concept from Samir directly, so it was fantastic having that relationship that we'd worked together as volunteers on shipwreck expeditions overseas. And when the idea of getting the Sydney project up and running came up, Heritage New South Wales was really supportive, because it's so vital that the community lead the work in looking at our underwater heritage.
It sounded like an interesting concept. I remember at the time, we were doing some of the deeper wrecks, and I always thought, can't we just gather a few friends together and do it? Why do we need a club or a society or an organisation? But I said yes because I didn't want to miss out on anything. And I think in hindsight, your idea was a great one, because doing some of those deeper wrecks further offshore, you needed bigger boats, you needed more people to share the cost. And also I soon discovered that there was a lot of skill amongst us that we were able to share. And so I was learning a lot of some of the other guys and what they were able to contribute. So it all turned out to be great. And I'm really pleased that I did get involved.
The way that Sydney Project came about together is from being bored, to put it simply. We were diving the same shipwrecks in 50 meters up to 80 meters of Sydney. We can work out. And we just started to get bored. We knew that there's a lot of shipwrecks that were undiscovered. And you got to remember, there is over 3,000 shipwrecks just off the New South Wales coast. So we knew they were going to be deeper water. So you couldn't do this as 2 or 3 people. We had to get a collective together in order to go and find a way to find these shipwrecks, be able to, organize into a group where we can use support divers and be able to run the whole operation and, achieve something meaningful. It's not just about going diving, but it's about documentation, a bit of archaeology, mapping, and just bringing information back, which later has proven to be absolutely amazing through the relatives of those that were lost on shipwrecks that we got to meet. And I think that's probably one of the big influences that Sydney Project has had. But that was the whole idea, is to go out and explore new shipwrecks.
So having been involved in deep diving as a diver myself, also a store owner and a charter boat operator, I had a regular clientele of very keen deep divers. And they dived with me through the late 80s, in through the 90s and into the 2000s. And a group of particularly keen divers wanted to form a club, and with the idea of, or with the aim of, exploring for deeper wrecks, discovering deeper wrecks, etc. And over a number of conversations, I suggested to them it might be a good idea to actually incorporate and form an incorporated club, which we then did over a number of meetings. And the Sydney Project evolved from that. And of course, by being incorporated, it allowed for easier and better integration with government organisations, etc. So there are a number of meetings, a few arguments, a few discussions, and ultimately a lot of agreements, which was very positive.
They were all just the good divers, and they were good people. They wanted everyone had something of interest together. We wanted to go out. We wanted to dive. We wanted to get access to new wrecks. We wanted to learn from each other. We wanted to be able to start putting procedures in place so that this sort of stuff would be safe. We wanted to put a system in place so that others could come in and they could be mentored to get up to doing the big dives and doing the big depths, and that people would see, especially, sectors that wouldn't normally talk to us, fishermen, the government, people like that. And they would see that this was an organized group and they were actually capable of achieving things. You know, we would get photographers in, like Mark. We would talk to Tim Smith. You know, we would get Dave Apps and Paul Gasking and those guys out doing the big exploration dives yourself, and get them to be able to go back to these people and say, well, you know, you've helped us, you've given us the marks, you've taken us out there, you've told us the history. This is what we can do. And it opened up, I think it opened up a wealth of new sites and the ability for new people to get excited about doing those divings. You know, the training was getting people into long reef, you know, the 80-meter dives, stuff like that. But the exploration was out further, and that needed something strong. That needed a group who were working together.
At the time, there was the Sydney project, and there was, you know, the cave diving focused people in South Australia, the wreck diving group in Melbourne, but everyone was at a very early stage of development. You have to remember, this is 2002-ish, you know, rebreathers had really only been around for a few years, and everyone was just getting off the ground. And I think the Sydney project was a kind of a classic exemplar of what you could do if you got together with a group of people that had common interests, that were like-minded, and you know, pooled resources, and were able to, you know, do dives that individuals just wouldn't have done, you know, as a very small group. So I think it was very synergistic, and I think it was kind of the prototype for a lot of what happened in Australia over the subsequent years. So no, very important, Samir. It was an important initiative that you undertook to get that going.
The Sydney project were kind of responsible for deep rebreather diving. You know, they wanted to go and find these wrecks that they knew were out there, and it was probably early noughties when it was kind of happening, and it would have been a significantly harder logistical challenge to try and do those dives on open circuit, and so, you know, they basically got stuck into rebreathers. And so I think we can probably thank the Sydney project for bringing rebreathers to the Australian technical diving scene and demonstrating at a local level what these machines could be used for. And I think the proof's in the pudding in terms of what they've found, you know, and what they've managed to continue to succeed to do.
I know ever since I've joined it before, I've had numerous divers ask me about the projects that we've done. I think using social media to our advantage has given us more influence across audiences. And I've definitely had people ask me how they could join Sydney Project, or how they can get into deeper surveying dives, or even join as support divers for some of our expeditions. And I think it's garnered more interest in wreck diving, maritime archaeology, 3D mapping, and deeper diving in general.
And as a community group, we've kind of been able to do some cool stuff around submitting to councils and interests and the United Nations Convention on Underwater Cultural Heritage and stuff like that. So the influence has still been to encourage diving, but with a purpose.
Finding new wrecks, which is getting that historical documentation, and you know, that's a huge thing for the community and also for families who may have lost people in those ships going down, putting the pieces of those stories together again.
I think the Sydney project's had quite a big influence, particularly well, almost globally. There's a lot of divers seem to have cut their teeth with the Sydney project, or spent some time there and then have moved on, and a lot of them are the people you regularly hear talking at Oztech or mentioned in dive media. So it's definitely had a big influence just in the sort of strength of the members and past members and what they've gone on to do.
Sydney Project has kind of influenced people, I guess, like myself, to be involved, and in technical diving in Sydney and perhaps Australia more generally, and just kind of raising awareness that there are historic wrecks, especially World War II related wrecks, and a lot of interesting archaeology, around Australia. So
To be able to dive in extremely deep water on shipwrecks was a completely new ball game, and to be able to access the knowledge from the likes of David Appley, Simon Mitchell, Richard Taylor, all the big names in the dive industry was absolutely invaluable. You couldn't possibly get better knowledge than to be with those guys, plan dives, absorb knowledge like a sponge. And I think this is sort of the legacy that we always promote within the Sydney Project is we invite everyone, whether you're just a support diver, but looking to progress yourself to that next level, you've got access to the people who are actually doing the dives. You're not, just doing the training and just doing your normal dives. You're actually there with the people who are doing those actual dives. And to me, I think that is the biggest influence that Sydney Project has had, is just giving that access that otherwise wasn't possible.
Well, I know what it did in Australia was it tended to there was a few feelers because of the website and everything went out. People started to know what we were doing, and we actually collected a few other divers and people of interest. So we actually had a profile. So instead of just going off doing our own dives, the people in divers in the UK and Western Australia and down in Melbourne and that were very interested in what we were doing.
I think we also need to remember that we're dealing with technical diving, which is a dangerous activity. And we had good memories, but we also had some really sad ones. Losing our friend Sven back in 2007 was probably the lowest moment for Sydney Project and for everyone who knew Sven. He was a dear friend, and it was very hard to take. And, it's never something easy to experience, especially when you're there. But, this is what we accept those risks. It's never a pleasant thing to lose someone that's close. So this was probably definitely one of the lowest moments that we can think of when we're talking about memories.
I remember the times when we were going out to dive the Kopitai and those sorts of things in Sydney when the weather wasn't great, and you were quite merciless with was it Hadwin, who always felt sick, and you'd be sitting there going, whatever you do, don't think about things like souvlaki and pappardelle and tagliatelle, because that will make you feel even worse. And of course, there was a lot of great banter and a lot of good laughs with that group, and I have very fond memories of it. But the Cumberland was, like, how often do you dive a wreck and identify it pretty much on the first dive? I mean, unbelievable.
It was a bit strange bringing a giant knife with me down underwater. So I think that was pretty cool, just having it in a sheath inside my belt and then going underwater and taking out like a ninja. that was for the cutting the nets, by the way, in case just wanted to clarify.
I think one of my most memorable moments is probably on one of those Bermagui trips and the shot line getting dropped into the water and seeing the large buoy getting dragged under from the very strong currents. We then had a lengthy debate about the maximum speed that we could scooter at, and if we could scooter quicker than the current. Needless to say, we did end up diving that day. Road trips, 4 a.m s, South Coast sunrises, seals off the dock, dolphins off the bow, finding out what a P-valve was.
That time the current picked up and whooshed the deco station halfway back to shore. Recovery parties around the fire, and all the friends made and some lost along the way.
I think the time that we were, gather up from Sydney and the Melbourne team, and they all came up with a lot of dive gears, and then the amount of dive gears we pull it out, and then it was really wow, and that's one of the big memories that I have.
So I was really excited actually when we were doing the dives on the so-called Iron Knight, and got to do some measurements down there, which is the first time that I've had a measuring tape out at 120 meters. It was all pretty exciting. And so in my own little way, I reckon I got to make a bit of a contribution to the identification of that wreck.
Well, most memorable moment in the setup of the Sydney project was probably drinking sake at the Japanese restaurant after one of the meetings and being absolutely locked when we walked outside and the cold air hit me.
You guys, yourself, Samir, Dave Apps, Paul when he was there, the others who were out there exploring, pushing more, Simon Mitchell, all of them. I hope that it's got some information out there and encouraged others. I personally would like to see more kudos given to what you guys do now. But I think it's gone all right.
From a diving point of view, I think possibly the wreck formerly known as the Iron Knight was probably my clearest dive. 30, 40 meter viz, seeing the whole wreck from sort of, I don't know, 70 or 80 meters laid out below you. We also, me and Paul had a dive on the William Dawes, similar to that, similar sort of conditions. And it was when we dived the stern. We descended and we were on the sand, and we swam across to the wreck. Well, Paul and I had scooters, you had your camera, and you were just chipping away, swimming slowly across the bottom while Paul and I scooted across and had a quick look at the stern. And I always remember that vision of coming up to the side of the wreck and just seeing the whole deck laid out in front of me was pretty specky. I also do remember on that dive, it was pretty funny that you passed me the camera at one point because you had to turn around to start swimming back. We had scooters, so we could sort of get back a bit quicker. And I said, no, I don't want the camera. I've got enough to deal with. And then off you went and took the camera back. We come back to the shot line and no Samir, he's obviously gone up, but there's a camera sitting at the bottom of the shot on the sand. Samir must have left it here for some reason or another. So anyway, clipped it on and up I went. And we're doing a bit of a deep stop, which we certainly don't do anymore. But around 90 or 80 odd meters. And next thing you're going off underwater like no one can believe, signaling to Paul, and where's my camera? And he just casually pointed to me, and I think you took a fairly big sigh of relief, unbeknownst to me that you didn't realize you'd lost it.
But wow, what about 2000 and what was it, 7? We had that what would be 50, 60 meters of visibility, blue water right down to the bottom, and we landed on the stern of the wreck, which was still largely intact. And I got that photograph, which I still think is one of my best deep wreck pictures. I always wish I had got back about a meter more from it, but just to have that sort of visibility on a fairly deep wreck, that was just such a fantastic experience.
The first project the Sydney project achieved, looking at the Cumberland wreck, which we sort of knew of down in Disaster Bay, but it had never been imaged or confirmed. And we had some opportunity to work with CSIRO, and they did some remote surveying, confirmed a big wreck there. But it was the Sydney project that jumped in the water to those depths and captured it for the first time. And that was a real moment. It was one of our biggest shipwrecks and a World War I story. and it was told for the first time properly. So that was a great achievement.
In Australia, I mean, obviously it was leading the way with all of the rebreather work, but even here in the States, one of the things, when I first moved up here, I expected there to be a really mature community of rebreather divers, and there just wasn't. And even to today, there still really isn't. And one of the things that I am very appreciative of the Sydney project for is that it taught me procedures and skills and the way to approach big dives that just wasn't in existence here at all. And certainly, you know, I've been very lucky here in LA, but because I've got a good reputation when it comes to the way I approach the big dives and the teams that I invite on the big dives and the way that I set them up. And that is all courtesy of the Sydney project, because all I'm doing is stealing all of the procedures from the Sydney project and applying it here. It has been really, really interesting to watch the way things have developed here. And a lot of the Sydney project influences are very much part of the LA scene now.
Without any doubt, the greatest achievement of the Sydney project is the fact that it changed the technical diving environment in Australia. It turned it from a egocentric, parochial situation whereby numbers of individuals were forming small, loose groups within cities and within states and pursuing their own agendas. And ultimately, the Sydney project opened this up and drew all of these people together. And by doing so, obviously, gave access to a lot greater views and a lot more knowledge, which has allowed the Sydney project to make the achievements the Sydney project has made.
I think the Sydney project's had an enormous influence with the work that you were doing, you know, in the early and mid 90s, really way ahead of everybody else. And it was only after that and following the lead of the Sydney project that people in Western Australia and Melbourne really got started and went on to make some pretty big achievements. So I think we owe a lot to you.
No other group of people were doing sub 100-meter dives at the time. It was pretty standard that, you know, your 75, 80-meter dive that potentially some naughty people had been doing on air over the previous sort of 5 to 10 years was now being dived on gas. But yeah, there was nothing being done over 100 meters, and the Bermagui stuff that we did, and you know, Stewie Polbell, he was instrumental as well as yourself with that, because without you two guys and then maybe Garsky and me as bums on seats to pay the charter as well, we never would have done that, because it required a bit of persistence from yourself, and then you know, a bit of maybe the boat skills and the search skills of the likes of Stewie Bell that was able to get us onto the right contacts and find those sort of wrecks. And yeah, that sort of busted open New South Wales deep diving, really.
Oh, look, it goes without question to say that the Sydney project have really professionalised the volunteer work of divers working with the community to image our key historic shipwrecks, and some of the approaches, the depths that the team have been going to, the professionalism and controls they've put in place have really driven change in that area. But also the techniques applied to map the wrecks, you know, videos, 3D imagery, really, you know, top cutting edge approaches, working at depth on these complex sites. So I think Sydney project have really shaped the way this work's done, particularly in the volunteer space.
It's hard to say what is the most memorable moment in the last 20 years, because there's been so many. And diving a shipwreck for the first time is always going to be amazing and memorable, because you're the first one to set eyes on it. And it doesn't matter how many times you do it, it's always absolutely amazing. But to me, the biggest memorable moment is Sydney Project being recognized by the government for the work that we've done in promoting shipwreck protection, exploration, and just in general, bringing awareness of our maritime heritage to the public. And because this award goes to everyone that ever participated, whether you're a diver, support diver, any person who were involved in any form or shape with Sydney Project deserve that award. And to me, that was probably the most special moment, to be recognized by the government for everything that we've done.
Just want to congratulate you for the guys who initially founded the group, Dave Apps and Mark Eves and Samir. Congratulations on 20 years. You've done a lot in that time. Some pioneering work that's occurred in the Australian technical diving community. So well done on starting the group and I guess putting your foot forward and going out and doing some of these massive expeditions that we can now do. And sort of good luck to the future, I guess, of the group. And hopefully we do more deeper dives and sort of push the envelope a little bit in terms of 3D mapping and how far we can go with it.
I think the Sydney Project as a concept and community has been a constant over 20 years, during which so much else has changed. So here's to the next 20. Long may we worship the rust.
It is a great news to hear that like 20 years been sort of, you know, doing a great work. Hopefully it's just keep going up, you know, with it as a good team members. And also we can do some like great work, you know, among the teamwork. Yeah, so I'd like to hear their like 30s, you know, anniversary or 40th as well. Good job. Keep up doing that.
I'd just like to say thank you to Samir for his tireless efforts in keeping the Sydney Project going. He's absolutely the lifeblood of the Sydney Project, and it's no easy task to organise a large group of divers to all be on the same boat on the same day, ready to dive. So thank you very much, Samir, and look forward to diving with you many more times into the future.
It's kind of funny. It's the 20th anniversary, and I think I've only been diving since 2006. And so I suppose thank you to the original members of the Sydney Project who have essentially paved the way for us new kids on the block who've sort of come at a time when rebreathers are all singing, all dancing with integrated decompression. And realistically, if they hadn't done the hard yards, we wouldn't have the opportunities that we've had in the last few years, and the opportunities that we'll have going forwards to continue to do deep technical diving, not just in Australia, but also around the world. We've got something pretty exciting coming up in April that we've got a few Sydney Project members involved with. So yeah, thanks to the guys who laid the foundations.
Congrats on the 20 years anniversary. It's really cool that a group can last this long, and I can't wait to come back.
I guess, you know, there's been a lot of difficult times in the last few years, and but you know, there's still a lot more wrecks being discovered. There's still a lot more to be found out and identified, and I think now more than ever we need to get out there and support each other, and yeah, get to discovering more things and finding out more about the archaeology of these wrecks.
Well, congratulations to you all on the 20th anniversary, and Samir in particular, my good friend Samir. Congratulations on everything you've done, all the fun you've had, and the limits you've pushed, and wish you many more years to come of adventure and fun with the Sydney Project. Thanks for letting me be involved for that short time while I was in that area. I had heaps of fun doing it, and learned a lot, and became a better diver from that, and just all around good time. Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, it's very impressive that the Sydney project is still running after all of these years, and I know that it's had its ebbs and flows as we are having up here. You know, we're a bit in an ebb at the moment with the number of rebreather divers that are coming through. But it's just really impressive, the stuff that the Sydney project has done over the years and it's been involved in, and the mentorship that it has offered to the new rebreather divers coming through. So congratulations to the Sydney project.
On the 20th anniversary of the Sydney project, I really think everyone involved can look back with some pride at what's been achieved. And yeah, we've all been through the technical diving revolution, but it's not over yet. There's a lot still to do. So get out there and get into it before we're all too old for this shit.
I treasured those times. I thought that it was a fantastic group, lots of fun, and awesome divers. You know, I learned a lot from I think we all learned from each other. You know, everyone had their own little superpower and brought different things to the table. Yours, Samir, was, you know, unbridled enthusiasm and organizational skills, and you know, that was the glue that held it together. But you know, it was a terrific thing, and it's just nice to reflect on that and, you know, say hi to everyone again. I think many of us have held a passion for diving. You know, not too many people have just completely dropped out, and that shows that, you know, we were all in it for the right reasons and continue to be so. You know, I'm still loving my technical diving. Just come back from the Pierce for 2 weeks, and you know, the first hydrogen dive in 30 years, pretty exciting. No one died or blew themselves up, which was a big bonus. But anyway, I just say hi to everyone and, you know, have a great evening. I'm sorry I'm not there with you. Having just been on the road for 3 weeks myself, I just can't get away at this point in time. But, you know, terrific initiative to celebrate the Sydney project.
Congratulate all the guys who put in all the effort over the years, especially Samir, as he really drove the Sydney project along, you know, in its highs and lows. So him in particular, Dave's apps for almost always being there, except when he's on his bad breathers, homemade. So Mark Spencer for his photos, just magic.
Well, 20 years has gone quickly. It's pretty shocking in a way. I envy you, Samir, and all our other friends who are 10 years or more younger than me. I have been told by one of our colleagues that, Mark, you just don't stop, you keep doing it. I'm now enjoying watching what you guys are up to, taking it a little bit, you know, another step further with the technology, with the challenges. I think that's fantastic. I think we've all been enriched by what we've done together, the friendships we've made. For me, I've been enriched a lot by the experiences I've had with both shipwreck diving and with wildlife.
Congratulations for 20 years. I was there by accident at the beginning, but hopefully help shape the project's work, and you know, Heritage New South Wales works very closely with the group to sort of provide opportunities for new sites that might be out there that we've either been working on separately at the state government, but really see these as a partnership, and you know, everyone's responsibility to protect our underwater heritage, and to have groups like the Sydney Project out there being active, being highly professional, and really advancing our knowledge of these sites and telling those stories in the media. You know, fabulous work. Hats off to everyone. Really great group of people, really fun and committed, and look forward to working with you going forward.
Here today in 2023, I would like to congratulate all the members of the Sydney Project on all of their achievements and the fact that they have managed to maintain a cohesive group and continued to pursue the original dreams and desires of the Sydney Project when it was formed. It was a pleasure and an honour to be involved with this group of people. And I guess initially at the start, as with all groups of this nature, it was uncertain as to just how long the Sydney project would last for. It might be the next meeting, it might be the next dive, but here we are, 2023, and still going strong. And I think that's fantastic. And I'd like to wish everybody all the best. And please keep the project going into the next generation.
Well, happy anniversary, I suppose. 20 years, yeah. And I haven't seen a lot of you people for a long time, so it'll be good to catch up. And yeah, we'll move into the next 20 years the way we started the first 20, just maybe without some sake.
Well, I can't believe it's 20 bloody years. It makes some of us feel very old. I hope you go out and just do more diving, continue on. You know, there's a wealth of shipwrecks to explore, and not just shipwrecks around New South Wales. You know, there's a whole heap up in Queensland. Then you've got around the Pacific. And of course, not just shipwrecks, anywhere where you can do, you know, that sort of exploration. Who knows, they may even let you get back into the Balmain Tunnel. The Balmain Tunnel. Maybe we can end up owning it again, or owning it.
Congratulations, guys, on the 20-year anniversary. A thank you has to go to every single one of you, because Sydney Project would not exist a single year if it's not for the effort of every single person that put their hard work in order to achieve what we have achieved over the years. It has been very quiet over the last few years for different various reasons, but we are still active. We do have some new sites we are about to uncover, and you know, we are still exploring. And I just want to wish everyone absolutely amazing day. Let's keep it going. Let's keep the exploration going, and you know, keep on doing what you're doing and get in the water, and let's go diving. Cheers.